You hear everybody?
We're here.
Facebook censors.
Well, that was a pretty good audio, or pretty good video. Too bad we couldn't hear it.
Well, I'm not sure what happened there. We'll fix that up for the future.
All right.
Well, the point is, we were sharing there. I don't know if the folks out there could hear that, but a recent SNL monologue, Chris Rock. The term limits are seeping into the culture beyond the talking heads and the politicians. Chris Rock was making some jokes about why we need term limits on Congress, and his real point there was I took away from that was really insightful. It said, as Americans, we've decided we're not going to have a monarch, yet we have dukes and duchesses telling us how to live in D.C. That's a perfect line. That's exactly right.
Well, yeah. that was the lip reading version that you played earlier. So maybe we'll finish off with the sounded version next time. Pretty funny. We got actually a lot of reaction off of that. It just shows you the both sides really like this idea of term limits. It's becoming a very popular idea from both sides.
You know, it really is. And 82% of the American public support this. And, you know, we hear about that everywhere I go. I was in Savannah on Monday, Savannah, Georgia, and I gave a speech to about 80 folks, or 60 folks rather. And it was very good. And they were very engaged. And, you know, they want to help. They want to get involved. So I showed them how in Georgia they can help, and they can help us get term limits on Congress. And we talk about this a lot. We talk about the process. We talk about what it takes and why. And so we should probably recap that again, because I think it's very important information. But basically, a lot of states years ago, back in the late 80s and early 90s, had imposed term limits on their congressional delegation, right? We all know that. So a guy from Arkansas named Thornton decided he didn't like that. So he sued us. He sued U.S. Term Limits, us, our organization. We've been around for a long time. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in a Supreme Court decision, Thornton versus U.S. Term Limits, they said that states don't have the authority to limit the terms of their own congressional delegation. Go figure. I can't explain it. That's what they did. So then they further said, if you want to have term limits on Congress, you need a constitutional amendment. Great. Okay. So that's what they said. That's where we are. So how do you get an amendment to the Constitution of the United States? You have to look to the Constitution to figure out how. That is in Article 5. Congress can propose an amendment. The states can propose an amendment. I think we all know Congress isn't going to propose an amendment, right? Nobody's going to argue that point. So it's up to the states to propose an amendment, and they have the authority to do that. What that takes is 34 state legislatures have to pass a resolution calling for an amendments proposing convention. At that convention, they will propose an amendment to limit the terms of Congress. Then it has to go, just like any other amendment, whether it's proposed from the states or proposed by Congress, it has to go back to the states for ratification. 38 states have to ratify it. So that's what we're doing. We are on our way there. We've got a lot of activity inside the states pushing this resolution to get it done. We need your help. That's why we do these broadcasts every Thursday. That's why U.S. Term Limits exists, so that we can do this, but we can't do it without you. So
well, and everybody's talking about it too. Nikki Haley came out just saying, hey, listen, we need to get this done recently. You can go from either side of the political spectrum, and the support for this is huge. It's just we keep getting sabotaged at the state political level. And that's where our supporters really have to stand up and say, we're not asking you anymore. We demand that this get done. You need to vote yes, or we'll find somebody to vote yes. I mean, they really need to get this under control, because for being this popular, it's amazing that we have so much resistance from the political mind.
Yeah, it absolutely amazes me. And we just need the public to put pressure on their state legislatures. And if they'll do that, we'll get this done. We will get it accomplished. And then there's a whole host of things that we can actually use Article 5 for to fix what's broken in our country. And we need to do it sooner rather than later. I mean, the country's never been more divided, and it has never been more polarized, except on this one issue. This one issue has the potential to bring everybody together, regardless of your political affiliation, whether you're left, right, center, independent, green, doesn't matter. This is the issue that can unite everyone.
You know, Ken, you mentioned, you know, left, right, Republican, Democrat. You know, it just makes me think of just an example of the nonpartisan nature. I was going to say bipartisan, but it's really like kind of, when you look at it, it's multi-partisan. In West Virginia, we did a count, you know, of all of our pledge signers, and we have actually numbers at like 115 pledge signers in West Virginia running and on the ballot this year. And they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're independents, they're libertarians, and they're Mountain Party members. I mean, it's all over the map, and people see that there's something functionally wrong here, and that it can be better for the country to put term limits on Congress.
Well, yeah.
Well, we noticed the increase in Arizona was strictly from Democrats and independents. We've always been popular with Republicans, but we had a 5% increase in popularity from likely voters just in the last 2 years, and most of that came from independents and Democrats. This is an issue that's time has come.
Yeah, it really has. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And let me give you, Aaron, why don't you give everyone an example of exactly what's going on inside the states? Talk about West Virginia, talk about Kentucky. Those are your two major states. So talk about those.
Yeah, happy to. Well, let's start with West Virginia. It's kind of easier. We've been at it for a couple of years in West Virginia getting this done. And unbelievably, both years we have cruised through votes through one chamber, come through a committee in the other chamber, and come right up to the final vote. And both years in opposite chambers through shenanigans and not through a vote. We've been sort of stifled at the last minute because they, you know, some powers that be in there wanted to stop us because we were going to get it to the finish line as soon as we got that vote. And so there's a filibuster one year. The next year we saw some other shenanigans going on. Really got caught in the crossfire, some other stuff going on. So, you know, the will of the people is behind it clearly. So in West Virginia, we've seen, like I mentioned before, we have 115, I believe the count is now, unless some more have come in. 115 pledges.
Huge. That's huge.
Yeah, that's approximately 53% of all candidates, including all, you know, all third parties and that kind of thing. Everyone on the ballot for the West Virginia legislature, about 54% of them. So we're getting up there. The popularity is there. You know, the media is starting to pay attention to this. There's a local paper in Charleston, a daily newspaper there that is now talking about term limits as well. And some of the pledge signers are chiming in that paper. So we're really moving this. And if you look on the breakdown, I mean, it's Democrats and Republicans and third party folks. People want to see the change there. So it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and for Kentucky, Kentucky is an interesting beast. We're really excited. We blew up this year in terms of our pledge signer numbers. The support that we have here is extremely bipartisan. Last time I did a check a couple of days ago, our breakdown of pledge signers is exactly even for Republicans and Democrats. And so, you know, it's a unique issue that can really transcend things. And more politicians are starting to see here, there's nothing to be afraid of in backing term limits. The people are resolutely behind you in this. And they want you to do this. So, in fact, let's get on board and actually do something together for once instead of slinging mud.
Well, we had in Utah, we had a couple of our state legislators put it in the top 2 issues of their platform, and both of them turned out long-term incumbents. And so not only is it popular with the voters, now this next generation of politicians that don't want to spend 30 years in Washington are really here to service the community. They're starting to step up and make it front and foremost in their platform.
Yeah, and that's very, very important. We've got a lot of activity going on in my region as well. And for those of you that don't know, we're all regional directors. We manage more than one state, and in some cases as many as 16. And in North Carolina, there's a lot of activity. We've got a lot of momentum building up towards the election. This is one of those issues that can really turn the corner for a candidate who's trying to win, or an incumbent who's trying to win re-election. Now, we believe everyone should be term limited, whether it's city, county, state, or federal, but it's not always the case. So this is one of those issues, though, that there is zero downside for a politician.
It's kind of funny. We're watching a movement on both. So all of a sudden, one side of the party will sign our pledge, and then as we get closer and closer to the actual election, pretty soon the other one jumps in and signs the pledge. We must have asked them a dozen times. All of a sudden, it shows up. It just shows that they're getting pressure, and that their editors are signing the pledges, and they're saying, hey, we better do this. This train is starting to leave the station. We better be on it rather than in front of it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, Aaron, did you have some other things that other clips that you were gonna play?
Sure. Well, we're talking about all the support that there is among the people and growing support among the state legislatures. Of course, the legislators at the state level need to be prodded. That's what we do, is move things along and show the state legislatures, this is to your advantage. This is the advantage of your state to put term limits on Congress and check that runaway power that we see there. However, the powers that be in D.C. Very much don't like the idea of term limits, and they have rather poor reasons for such. And I thought we would highlight, and here at U.S. Term Limits, we're equal opportunity bashers of anti-term limit people. If you bash our cause, we'll come after you. And it's not like a personal, it's not a party thing, but it's a matter of about the issue. And you'll see some of the reasons that are given for justifying not having term limits are pretty incredible. So I thought we'd take one from either side, and some two very notable politicians from either major party, and they have uniform agreement on not supporting term limits, which is really interesting. So we talk about the hyperpartisanship in Congress, yet they're unanimous sometimes in their opposition to term limits. So yeah, I can pull those up. Let's pull up a couple here back to back.
All right, very good. I'm going to go ahead and mute now.
Mm-hmm.
We have here in Kentucky, we have a Democratic governor who came together with a Republican Secretary of State, and they came up with a very good plan for everybody to vote. And it's wonderful. They actually came together and negotiated. Isn't that amazing? I wish we could do that at the federal level. But I think that Kentucky has never made it easier to vote than this year, and that's incredible. Early voting starts tomorrow. I am very concerned about the U.S. Postal Service. The Postal Service is such an important service. It provides prescription medication to our seniors, to our veterans, particularly in rural areas. And it needs to be helped through this coronavirus. And I'm afraid Senator McConnell hasn't done enough for that. And I would be helping our Postal Service, because let's face it, if you can hand out $500 billion in slush funds for corporations, you should be able to turn around and help everyday people. And one of the ways is to help our Postal Service.
Senator McConnell, your response.
Yeah, my opponent always likes to mention how long I've been in the Senate. She doesn't seem to be troubled by the fact that Joe Biden's been in Washington 47 years. Under her proposal to limit terms, Joe Biden would have been leaving the Senate at the time I got there. So I'm amused by her advocacy for a position on term limits that would have eliminated Joe Biden's career before I even got to the Senate. Look, the question is, who can be effective for Kentucky? There are 4 congressional leaders. I'm the only one not from New York or California. I allow Kentucky to punch above its weight. What does it mean to Kentucky? Over the last term, my last term, $17.5 billion for the Commonwealth that would not have been there had I not been the majority leader of the Senate. I give Kentucky an opportunity to punch above its weight on national issues, and to bring home things for this state that it would not otherwise get.
Senator, thank you. And rebuttal.
I had a question to ask you. It's in regards to term limits for Congress.
No, I don't support it because you'd be in real trouble.
Why is
New
that?
Hampshire. You're a small state, you'd get nothing.
Wouldn't that level the playing field though for the smaller states over
Not at all.
time?
No, because guess what happens? It's the number of votes that in fact you can get to get something done. Now you're in the middle of New York and Massachusetts and Ohio, etc. And guess what? The only way small state senators have been able to fend for their states is get seniority and be able to get something.
Yeah, and that's the problem. That's why I was thinking.
Well, it's not a problem if you just vote them out of office.
What about term limits on the president? Would you like to see term limits on the president removed to allow people to elect whoever they want?
Because I think the president has so much power, he could abuse the power to stay in office. And I think term limits for president is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Could Congress as well abuse that power?
No, because there's so many of them. You have a countervailing force. There's no countervailing force to a president other than the Congress as a whole. And you see what happens when one party takes a dive.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You know, we have here in Kentucky, we have a Democratic governor who came together with a Republican Secretary of State, and they came up with a very good plan for everybody to vote. And it's wonderful. They actually came together and negotiated. Isn't that amazing? I wish we could do that at the federal level. But I think that Kentucky has never made it easier to vote than this year, and that's incredible. Early voting starts tomorrow. I am very concerned about the U.S. Postal Service. The Postal Service is so... Senator McConnell likes to talk about Kentucky punching above its weight. Here in Kentucky, we feel like we've been sucker punched. We have the highest cancer rates in the country, highest rates of diabetes, highest rates of heart disease, some of the lowest wages in the country. Our economy hasn't been this bad since the Great Depression. It's just unbelievable. And if Senator McConnell would love to talk about term limits, I would love to talk about it, because you know what? President Trump is for congressional term limits. It's top on his agenda. And I agree with him on that. We should have them, and we should get them right now.
Wow, that was pretty interesting, huh?
That's pretty good. I think it's interesting to note, and I think we should note, that she was right. President Trump does support term limits. He's come out with a full-throated endorsement. Barack Obama supports term limits. He's also come out with a full-throated endorsement. So you've got the current president, the former president supporting this. And I find it interesting that members of Congress don't want it. You know,
and every politician that's left office supports it. You know, it's while they're in office that they like to have that career path in front of them. But, you know, once they leave office, they're all for it. You know, it just is humorous.
Right. Term limits for thee, but not for me. That's the way it always works, right?
Well, and you notice how it becomes, and this comes out of Mitch McConnell's mouth in this individual case, but, you take your pick of career politician, they'll tell you basically the same sort of thing. And in fact, I think, Biden essentially gave a pretty similar answer to what Mitch McConnell said, which was that vote for me. I've been there so long. You need me to get as much as I can out of the federal government for you back home. And there's no question about, how about we do what's right for Kentucky or whatever the state is, beforehand. And so there's this argument, this really twisted argument that, this whole state, they need me in particular. They don't need, qualified people to go to Congress in a functioning and a more healthy Congress. You need me. It's very, really, it's kind of a contemptuous idea of the voters that you just need to keep me in there. You shouldn't have real choices.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. But the counter argument to that, and the reality of it is that if you had term limits on Congress, you wouldn't need seniority. The
Right.
seniority would go away, and you would be relying on merit. People that deserve to be in leadership would be in leadership, regardless of what state you were from. and the whole seniority thing would go out the window. I mean, the dirty little secret in DC is if you go to DC now as a freshman congressman, senator, house, and you want something, whether it's you want to just simply propose legislation, or if you want to be on a committee, they own you the moment you want anything, even if it's to benefit the country as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And if
that's why we don't mentor our best and our brightest, because their focus is on getting reelected rather than what can I do in 2 terms to leave a legacy, and who can I find this uprising star to bring along and make sure that that legacy continues to grow. I mean, the whole attitude is different between because everybody that is talented becomes a threat to a career politician. So rather than trying to groom and mentor those bright shining stars, they end up getting discouraged. And what bright shining star wants to it's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It is absolutely nuts. So I'm posting the link to termlimits.com on the thread of the video that we're doing right now. And I would ask that everybody go hit that link, sign the petition, take a look at what we've got going on everywhere, and help us and get involved and help us put this thing through, because we truly do need your help.
Yeah, agreed. I just got a new volunteer out in Kentucky come through to my email. I'm going to give them a call right after this, and that's what we need. You know, if you're out there, especially, you know, a lot of us have more connections to people than we think, and can offer, you know, to open some doors for us. That's what we need. It takes a lot of public pressure to move individual legislators on different committees and so forth to inch closer to getting this done.
Amen to that. Amen to that. You guys got anything else we need to go over? Anything exciting happening?
Boy, lots of activity, lots of pledges coming in. Our pledge team has been working overtime. Well, I want to take my hat off to Aaron and his team. They've just been tremendous. What a year for pledges. And as he mentioned earlier, Kentucky, over 50% of all of the candidates have signed the pledge. I think that's amazing. We're getting close to that number in Arizona, Utah, both sides. We're getting both sides in Utah. Good job there with our team, Ian Phillips and his group. We have our new director in Idaho, Edward Humphreys. What a great job he's doing. He's starting to really build his group behind us. And California, talk about punching out of their weight. That group is something else. And we have a long road in California. But these guys have really seized it. And so they've really started to organize volunteers around districts and adopting legislators. We figured out if you live close and you're willing to kind of rustle it up with your local legislator, it's the most important job we have. And so if you like talking to legislators, then you need to let us know about that.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's all I've got, gentlemen. Anything else you can think of?
No, sir. Let's do this. I'm already getting. Yeah.
Vote.
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 Amen. Vote. Vote. All right. Very good. So we'll see you, I guess,
guys.
next week. Thank you for joining us. Everybody, God bless.
All right.
God bless.
Take care, guys.